If microchip companies make a profit from the generous grants they receive from the federal government, the taxpayers of America have a right to a reasonable return on that investment. I'm glad the Trump administration is in agreement with the amendment I offered 3 years ago. Taxpayers should not be providing billions of dollars in corporate welfare to large profitable corporations like Intel without getting anything in return. You know who said those words? Bernie Sanders. I know politics makes strange bedfellows, but if you're in bed with Bernie Sanders on just about anything, you may want to reflect on the position you've taken. Trump getting a 10% stake for the federal government in Intel. And here was him explaining the quote unquote deal he made with the Intel CEO.
And is this the new way of doing industrial policy?
Yeah, sure it is. I want to try and get as much as I can. If people come in and they need something, as an example, as a real estate person, if I have an agreement and I have any form of a stopgap where I can stop somebody from doing something, right? I have a covenant in an agreement, and they come to me and they say, would like to do something, but you have us restricted. If I do that, they usually have to pay. Now, in the case of Intel, it was interesting, but I hope I'm going to have many more cases like it. Intel came in. I met with the gentleman. I had a lot of respect for him. He came in under a little bit of a cloud. I liked his story. I thought he was good. I think he really means to do a good job with Intel. I said, I'd like to ask whether or not you'd give the United, because the story, a lot of people said I invested in Intel. I didn't invest, but I invest my heart in it and my soul because I want the country to be strong. But I said, I'd like you to give 10% of Intel to the United States of America. Not to me, to the United States of America. And I said, if you have them as a partner, you have the United States as a partner, I think that would be a very good thing for Intel. And he thought about it, a little bit different, and he said, I like that idea very much. We have a deal. And I just made $10 billion or $11 billion for the United States of America. And yeah, there will be other cases. If I have that opportunity again, I would do that. And then, you do have stupid people say, oh, that's a shame. It's not a shame. It's called business.
The real estate example is not the same thing because, as a real estate developer, you don't have a monopoly of force in society. I mean, there's a distinction between the private and public sector, right? We ridicule BLM Brandon, for example, for proposing to have city-run grocery stores. We understand the corruption associated with these. They're presented as magical public-private partnerships. This is rent-seeking behavior par excellence. This is the kind of thing that totalitarian regimes do, where you have to run everything through the government, and the government is your partner. And so if the government's your partner in a particular sector, where does that leave your competitors with a federal government or a state government putting its finger on the scale for you to the detriment, ostensibly, of your competitors? This is no good. Am I right? Stephen Moore, economist, author of The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity. Again, Steve, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Dan. Well, you've made the good philosophical free market case for why the government and the president should never be involved in what I call corporate welfare. And let's be very honest, this $100 billion is just a form of corporate welfare, which I think hopefully all people are against. Now, but I'm going to make a more just a practical point, okay, Dan? You've laid out the ideological point. The government sucks at pickers, winners, and losers. It's horrible. They're the worst investment bankers ever.
Yeah.
These are the people who picked Solyndra. These are the people who remember Fisker. That was the auto company that was going to make billions of dollars. How about the fact that these are the people who invested $500 billion in our public schools, and they haven't raised, test scores by one iota? How about the fact that this is the government that spent hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars under Biden on green energy, solar and wind power, and it has had no effect on our energy whatsoever. I mean, I could go on and on and on with these failures. So why would we think that politicians can do a better job of picking winners and losers in the economy than investment bankers and people who are really good at it? So it's going to lead to incredible flops. And it's also, look, here's my policy. Let's have how we have separation of church and state. How about separation of business and state?
Yes, 100%. 100%. But this is further ensconcing the state in the business.
Of course.
So I understand the corporate welfare piece, and I'm opposed to it categorically, like you are.
Right.
But this is still different than even that, because if you want to use that as the predicate, that any business that gets any sort of subsidy, or any sector that gets any sort of subsidy that or special deal or waiver that another sector doesn't, or another business doesn't, is an opportunity for the government to intercede and say, we're partners now. I mean, this is the stuff that we decry when we hear from American companies that get shook down by the Chinese Communist Party.
So you're raising another important point why this is bad policy. It's bad policy for the businesses, too. Do not get in bed, CEOs, with the government. Do not get in bed with them, because guess what? They're going to start regulating you. They're going to say, oh, yeah, we'll invest in you, but you have to have a certain number of women, certain number of blacks, certain number of Hispanics, a certain number of gays, and on all this stuff, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, all of these policies, which have nothing to do with making a profit, which is what a business is for. Now, if, some of my friends in the Trump administration, and I'm a Trump guy, so I disagree strongly with Trump on this. They go, well, Trump says this is a matter of national security.
But that's not what he said.
I'm not so sure about that.
Well, first of all, it's not, but that's not what he said. What he said is, you just heard him say it, I'm looking forward to making other deals like this. He didn't say but solely based on a belief that it's in our national security interest. There's another way to put it to your friends in the Trump administration that are running interference from on this is, if Bernie Sanders was the president and Donald Trump was a senator from Vermont, would you still be celebrating this deal?
Good point. I mean, look at what Trump is doing is opening up a massive gate for the next time we have an Elizabeth Warren or someone like that who's president, who is going to socialize our entire economy. You're just going to have this kind of business government relationship that is going to be very, very dangerous to our free market economy. The other thing, by the way, Dan is talking about that's related to this that you may have heard him talk about is the U.S. creating what is called a sovereign wealth fund.
Yeah.
And you've probably heard him talking about this. Now, this is like Saudi Arabia has a sovereign wealth fund because they have, hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of profits they've made on their nationalized oil. So they have to invest it. And that's called a sovereign wealth fund. There's one big difference between the United States and Saudi Arabia. I want to make this clear to people. Saudi Arabia has hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of surplus. We have a $37 trillion debt. So the idea that we have some kind of sovereign wealth that we can invest in the market is the most preposterous idea. Where's the money going to come from? We're going to borrow trillions more for our sovereign wealth fund? It's the most ridiculous thing. And of course, what they're going to do then is invest in the Solyndras and the Fiskers and the solar panels and all these projects that never pan out and lose money.
Mm. Well, you keep talking like that, and they're not going to invite you into the inner sanctum anymore. But I'm glad you are.
No, hold on, Dan. This is off the record, isn't it? I mean,
yes. Just between I'm Connie Chung here. Sure. Just whisper in my ear.
Do not tell anyone I said that. But listen, I mean, I love what Trump is doing on the economy for the most part. I think it's been very effective. But this is a really bad idea, and we have to nip this in the bud. And you're right. If you're a conservative and you're a Republican and you like Trump and you support this policy because Trump supports it, would you support if Bernie Sanders was president? And I think everybody would say, hell no.
I found the new guy to head up Doge. You want to hear who he is?
Is it me?
No. Well, yeah, you'd be great too. But but this is from what he's doing is from an unusual place, and so it's just worth taking judicial notice of. The German Chancellor. Right, Friedrich Merz,
Yeah.
Friedrich Merz,
Yeah.
or Friedrich
Yeah.
Merz, right? He's the only politician in the Western world talking about the welfare state.
Yeah. Well, actually, France is now even saying that, hey, maybe we've gone a little too far with paying people all this money not to work. So this is an interesting story for people. You know, we like to give people economic history lessons here on your show, Dan. And so there's a very famous book that was written in the early 1980s. I think it was called The Rise and Decline of Nations, and it was written by a very famous economist named Mansur Olson. I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
Yeah.
And it's a very important insight. After World War II, Japan and Germany were not just figuratively, but literally in rubbles, right? We bombed the crap out of them, and so every building was decimated in Berlin, et cetera. And so it was had nothing. They had been completely destroyed. And guess what? Two countries in the next 40 years had the fastest economic growth rate after World War II.
The two countries that were destroyed.
Yeah, Japan and Germany. And so Mansur Olson says, and by the way, all the countries that won, especially the European countries, went in the opposite. They went towards socialism, especially UK. That's why Margaret Thatcher was finally elected in 1979. And so the countries that won the war had a terrible economy. Japan and Germany grew like weeds and became the two of the dominant economic forces. And the reason for that is they did not have enough money to build up this big welfare state. They didn't have the unions, who had all been destroyed after the war. And so all of these kind of special interest groups were not able to steal money from the federal fisc and so on. And so those two now what's ironic is that Germany, which had grown so rapidly, now guess what? The unions have taken power again. The special interests have taken power again. The old people have taken power and now they're going bankrupt. And so there's a real lesson here. If you want to grow your economy, don't let special interests run it.
Yeah, right. I mean, the same thing happened in Japan too, with the lost decade, which is now they're like on their third lost decade because they got into industrial policy, like taking 10% stake in companies. Yeah.
By the way, hold on, I want to correct you. It wasn't a lost decade. It's been 3 lost decades.
Well, that's what I just said. Now we're on 3.
Yeah. So Japan's stock market, when I first came to Washington in 1983, everybody was talking about Japan, their national industrial policy. Oh, my God, this is the future. In fact, we had a big debate in Washington. Maybe we need a national industrial policy where the state – and guess what? Thank God Reagan was president. We went in the opposite direction. We went with free markets. Our stock market has gone up 40-fold since 1983. Their stock market has been flat for 30 years.
I don't know. It just seems so obvious, like what feeds versus strangles the golden goose. But yet we just can't seem to get our arms around these simple, tried and true concepts. I don't know what to tell you. But
well, now he's talking about why not? Maybe we should invest in McDonnell Douglas. What about Boeing? What about all the defense firms? This is getting very scary to me. Actually, I mean, we're going to have the government as a partner with all these businesses. That is socialism. Actually, you know what that is? It's fascism. That's what fascism was.
Right.
The government was in business, did business together.
Well, I mean, it's all of the mediating institutions being folded into the state, and let me tell you, the city where that is the closest, where that is the most pronounced, not just business, but all of the cultural and civic institutions are folded into the city government. The city of Chicago.
Yeah,
The city of Chicago, and it's the slowest, most sclerotic major urban center in the country.
Well, New York may be right behind you. If New York, New York. That's the other thing. New York is looking at electing a socialist. I think everybody's for this guy Mandani. Yeah. If he is elected, by the way, I think I may have mentioned this last week on your show. If that Mandani is elected, here's my prediction: Wall Street will no longer be in New York City. It will move to Dallas, or it will move to Miami or Tampa. It's already, by the way, moving out. I mean, Wall Street is not only a glimmer of what it once was, but, you want to tax all the rich people? Okay, gee, where'd they all go? Where are they? They're not here anymore.
Have you been contacted yet? Because I hear there's an opening on the Fed Board of Governors.
Well, that's an interesting one. I think that the quick story there, Dan, is that this woman it does look like I don't know all the facts, but if she is guilty of this mortgage fraud, she cannot be on the Federal Reserve Board. There's no question that one of the major principal causes of the 2008 financial crisis and the mortgage meltdown was people lying on their mortgage applications, just like it is alleged that this woman did. Now, I do believe people are innocent until proven guilty. But, if I were her, because, I was nominated to be on the Federal Reserve Board, and all sorts of allegations were made against me. And, I said, no, well, this isn't true. Here's the evidence. She's basically playing the victim here. Oh my God! Well, all she has to do is just show us your mortgage applications. If this is a lie, just show it to us, and we'll all go away.
Stephen Moore, economist, maybe future Fed Board of Governor.
I want to be
member.
The chairman.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Replace Jay Powell next year. Even better.
Don't give me a demotion.
All right. All right. Chairman Moore. I like the sound of that. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Right.
Appreciate it.
See you guys. Yeah. Take care. Have a great week.
You too. And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The IRS finally caught up with Louie.
I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years.